The YouTube people are going to be like, "What's going on?" But they'll never know. Hello and welcome to ElseNerds, a Galactic Network production. I'm Gregor Sprague.
And I'm Corey Scott.
For all info on this show's or for this show and for all info on this show, including show notes, subscription links, go to ElseNerds.com, and for other Galactic Network programs, go to gncasts.com.
On ElseNerds, we will talk about a lot of stuff, and we'll be pretty frank about it, and we may even use the swears.
Yeah. So, Corey, how you been?
It's been a weird day. It's been a weird day, and we'll talk about that when we get to nerding out. But it's been a weird day.
Yeah. So bit of life update stuff. One, I'm not exactly sure when the show is going to be next week. I think maybe Tuesday. But that's mainly going to be because I'm going to be up north in northern Michigan doing the I guess it has a name, the Mighty Mac Bridge Walk for Labor Day.
Nice.
So yeah, so we're doing Saturday's thing there, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and surprised a whole bunch of people at my church because I'm actually taking the Sunday off. They're like, "Wait, what? You're not gonna be here?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna be up in like Mackinac City and all that stuff." Um, but yeah, so that should be fun and all that stuff. And then also I have a job that I will be starting next week, so that'll be fun too.
Congratulations.
I
I've
work
heard that pimping ain't easy, so I wish
exactly.
you the best.
Yeah, I work in or I will be working because I did some of the training videos. Don't know exactly how many I was supposed to have done. So I might just do more and be an overachiever.
All the
Um,
videos.
well, there's like they say like, oh, there's this new hire ones, but I will be working at Target through another company in Target Mobile, and
Nice.
it's yeah, and it's a um, Beat saying use the Silicon Valley jerk off formula. Which it's in ways with how I explain it to people, especially with my friends who are church going people who are boycotting Target because of the whole we're gonna let transgendered people go to the bathroom of their choice sort of deal. And personally, and if my friends see this and they want to bring it up to me, I'll be like, I will say it again. I look at this in a very similar way Trevor Noah looks at this. Everyone's going to the bathroom. When I go to the bathroom, I don't want to see another penis. I barely want to see my penis. I look down enough to make sure I'm hitting the target, and then I look up. I
If
look
you're
up and
looking at the target, you're doing better than most people.
sort of deal. And so it's like I get in there, I do my shit, sometimes literally, and then I wash my hands and get out. Sort of deal. I don't really care who's in there, whether they were born a man, a woman, whatever. I don't care. You know,
And
because
I will go a little bit differently, which is not dissimilar in the mentality of it, which is I believe that all bathrooms, at least the stalls, should be hermetically sealed, like the trash compactor in Star Wars, for much of the same reasons. I just think that they should be completely private. And I don't want to see you, smell you, know that you're there. I don't want to be asked to hand you toilet paper underneath the stall wall. No, we should be pooping individually is how I feel about it. I also don't trust
yeah,
urinals. I think that they are basically just freakish, and I can't handle it. I just can't handle it.
yeah.
So I have a lot of bathroom hangups, and we can go into a story about that on another show. But I do
We'll
believe
do that
that
tomorrow on
it
Galactic
doesn't
Radio.
it doesn't matter what your gender is. Just leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, I see the why the people who bring up the scenarios they bring them up, but
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 this knowing that they're the same scenarios have been brought up about gay people, that have been brought up about people of different races. It's
yeah,
we've seen this argument over and over again. It's just a repeat with a different group
yeah,
stuck into the hard spot on it, and it's very annoying and bothersome. that we still can't seem to get a clear focus on what's important. And I'll tell you what, public restrooms, really not. So
You missed a great opportunity to pimp out a book because you said we're looking over one thing. Everybody poops.
yeah.
Oh,
But
I'm on fire with these. This is 2 podcasts in a row where I was able to correct someone with the joke.
that's great.
I did that yesterday with Dave. It was
So
awesome.
so you're moving a target professionally now. Um,
Yes.
Good for you.
I don't, and honestly, it's one of those things because I work in Target. I work in Target Mobile. That's my area, but I don't work for Target. I work for a separate company called Market Source.
Yeah, you're a vendor.
Yeah.
You're a vendor rep that comes in. I understand how we used to. There were plenty of the people who came like that for Best Buy. Um, Tons
Actually,
of places do that.
I believe or at least with how their video said, the HP reps at Best Buy are under the same umbrella as I am,
Yep.
sort of deal. But which is cool to see, cool to think about. Um, but anyways, so and it shouldn't interfere too much with my schedule because from what they say, I'm working 3 days, and I set those 3 days. So it's
Nice.
like hell's yeah. Um, but that is something else that I will figure out later on. Let's get into some news, shall we?
Let's.
Excuse me. The first one is that Deadpool creator and Image Comics co-founder Rob Liefeld is bringing back Youngblood in 2017. Now, I put this in here because I like Rob Liefeld. I like the stuff that he's doing. I love Deadpool. I almost said Daredevil. Like I love Daredevil. What does that have to do with Rob Liefeld? Nothing. I just wanted to tell you that. But the news is out that this is cool, and they're going with the thing they have all new Youngblood. But I figured also maybe you had read Youngblood, or you could tell us what this is and get me more excited about superhero books over at Image Comics.
All right. So, yeah, in the early '90s, when Image formed, based off of a bunch of creators leaving Marvel Comics and going over and making their own company to do something creator owned as opposed to doing all their best work for Marvel or DC. They quit Marvel and then they went next door to DC and they said, by the way, we're not going to work for you either, because DC was salivated and like all the great artists from Marvel just left. Oh great, we're going to get to sign them now. We're going to get them on our books as opposed to Spider-Man and X-Force and X-Men. They're like, no, we're not doing that either. Now, obviously, they've all wound up at some point going back and doing work for these companies again, but Image is still around. Here we are, 30 years later, and or 25 years later. Image still
Mm-hmm.
exists. Image is thriving. It is the third biggest
Image,
publisher in the world,
yeah,
but it's
Image
very
acquired Top
different.
Cow and a few other imprints too. So,
Well, Top Cow was part of Image
oh, was it?
initially. Yeah, Sylvester was
Okay.
part of the group, but it's a very different company. But the mentality of it is still the same, which is creator-owned work, creators driving the work, that sort of thing. It's not the. I mean, when it came out, a lot of the properties were very similar in the ideas, or at least some of the looks of what we were already seeing from these creators at the other companies. So Youngblood had a lot of similarities to X-Force and to other properties that Rob was a fan of, like Legion of Superheroes or Teen Titans. Um, Jim Lee doing Wildcats had a lot of similarities, at least in look, to X-Men. Same thing with Cyberforce from Mark Silvestri. Savage Dragon by Eric Larson could have been, if you squinted, looked at as another version of the Hawk with a big fin on his head, although the characterization was very different. Making him a cop was kind of a cool idea. Spawn was very different from Spider-Man, but at that point in time, what Todd McFarlane was doing with Spider-Man was very dark and thematically, you could tell that that's kind of where he wanted to take Spider-Man, but he couldn't, and that's part of the reason why he quit the book, anyways, is because he
Yeah.
was being limited on what he could do. So, yeah, the first incarnation of Image, and certainly the first books by these creators, and Youngblood being the premier title, were sort of like another Marvel. And Youngblood at that point in time was from Rob Liefeld's Extreme Studios, was very extreme, was 90s extreme. And a lot of his books you can kind of pick at and say, oh, well, this is Supreme. Supreme is obviously Rob's version of Superman. And this book over here is Rob's version of Cable, and this book is whatever. Uh, be that as it may, 25 years later, the company still exists. Some of the books have been continuously coming out in that time. Savage Dragon being one of them, Spawn being another one. Not always. I mean, Savage Dragon, Eric Larson's done that book the entire time. He's always been the head of it. He's always been writing the story and drawing the pages, everything month in, month out. That
Wow.
guy is just on fire. Like that, it's a
Yeah.
very prolific creator. And I think Rob even mentions in the article or in the interview where he's first talking about this new Youngblood book that Larson is like the backbone of the entire company. Uh, Eric Stephenson, who is the publisher for Image now, is started out with Extreme Studios, writing stuff for Rob, writing for Youngblood, wrote New Men, which was one of my favorite comics at the time, and I'm always constantly like, anytime I get a chance to get Stephenson's ear, I'm like, I want New Men again. I have told Rob and other people associated with Rob on a number of occasions I would give body parts to be able to write Kid Supreme. Um, no one's taken up on me, taken me up on it yet. But so Rob talked to a guy who was working on the X-Men '92 comic, who was a big fan of Youngblood back in the day, and he's like, "Hey, it's always been my dream to write Youngblood." And Rob's like, "Great, if someone tells you it's your dream, it's their dream to do this, then that's the person you want to hire." And so he's like, "Sure, great. I've been wanting to do something. We're coming up with the 25th anniversary. Let's get something made." And then he found this artist on Twitter, and the same thing. The guy's like, it has always been my dream. This was my favorite book growing up. I love these characters. So he drew some redesigns of the Youngblood characters to kind of modernize them a little bit. And Rob's like, you have no idea how perfect your timing is. Here's my number. Give me a call, and let's talk this out. And so this guy's like, holy shit, I'm gonna fucking get to draw Youngblood for Rob Liefeld and for Image Comics. And Image Comics, it has changed some of the rules on things. So like now you can't solicit a book until you have 3 issues in the can, like completed. They won't even solicit it. So it's not a matter of like Rob himself has had issues in the past of getting stuff out on time. He's not the only one. And the big 2 companies do a lot of that too. And Rob, when he worked for DC in the last couple of years, got 3 books out on time every month consecutively. He wasn't drawing them all, but he was writing them all and drawing at least one of them. So like you can say what you want, and a lot of people like to pick on Rob on the internet and everything, but I've always liked the guy. He's a great family guy if you kind of follow him around in just his general life. And he's seeing a lot of success right now because Deadpool is a beloved character. Cable, another character that he co-created, is the next thing that's going to wind up hitting these screens. So obviously, Youngblood being all his baby, he'd like to see that happen for them. There's been a couple of times when it was there was a cartoon series that was, I think they made the pilot, but it just never made it to air. And there were action figures done by McFarlane Studios and everything. So it's kind of a great thing. I am excited by the new artist. I think the takes on them, the Vogue look for that character in particular is very inspired. It has kind of a French spy kind of look. She's wearing a beret and has that kind of domino mask. But individualizes each of the characters. Shaft is a really different take. He's just more of a modern day hunter. I don't know if that's exactly what they're going to do because we see some of the classic looks for the characters in the artwork that's displayed as well. But I'd like to see some of this stuff transfer over. And yeah, like I said, I love extreme comics. I always loved the potential that was there, and I'm obviously not alone because you've had people like Mark Miller, Alan Moore wrote some of the most prolific storylines, some beloved stuff that he was doing for Rob's Comics, doing Supreme and doing a Youngblood series, or basically an entire Extreme Studios series that covered all the different characters. Kurt Busiek, just some great people have worked on these books and these characters before, so it's cool to see them get this next incarnation out there.
So my question for you then is, with Alan Moore's work over there, is this something that he will acknowledge that he's a fan of, or is this like a lot of the other stuff that everyone loves that he's like, yeah, that was shit,
Well,
or
I
I don't
mean,
really like it.
it's hard to say. Alan Moore, what he's interested in comics now, seems like it's a very different thing. But I don't think he has the bad relationship with what he did with Extreme versus what he had with DC Comics
Yeah.
because of the way that he was treated there. And because that to this day they're still trying to bleed out Watchmen when the rights of that conceivably he had thought were going to be returned to him at some point. They've just they've made a bad relationship with him, and it seems like now as they are introducing Watchmen characters in the mainstream DC universe, they're just doing everything they can to screw the guy a little bit harder. Uh, which, yeah, I mean they own the characters. That's reality. It's talk to Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
But and that's another thing is Kirby did work with Image Comics at that
Nice.
point in time. Rob had licensed Kirby's Agent America character for a little while after he had left Marvel with the Captain America thing that he'd done with Heroes Reborn. So yeah, that's some huge pedigree that's happened in
Yeah.
Extreme Studios. Would Moore say that it's his best work? Maybe not, but it was done in such a way that was a homage to the classic superheroes. And when he stopped doing it, he went over and started doing America's Best Comics, the ABC line, through Wildstorm, and that was much in that same vein. So you got Gray Shirt and Top Ten and Promethea, and all of those books were kind of like what he was doing at Extreme Studios, and he just kind of took that mentality onto this next step. And the only reason I think that he stopped working on those books and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is because of the deal he had with Wildstorm Studios when Wildstorm got acquired by DC. Same thing. It's like he just got put in bed with his enemy, that he did not want that, and he had that up front with Jim Lee when he started, and so that was kind of a bad place to be.
Yeah. All right. The next story I want to talk about, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know exactly how I feel about this, and this is that Bryan Singer and Peter Rice both talk about FX's Legion and the start and how it's intertwined in the X-Men universe of movies. So this came out during an interview with them, and first off, we should probably point out that, or at the this came out on this past Thursday during an Edinburgh Television Festival session with the director, writer, producer Bryan Singer, who's done the X-Men franchise, The Usual Suspects, House, and Peter Rice, chairman and CEO of 21st Century Fox Networks Group. The longtime collaborators had an onstage conversation during a Game Changer session at the fest about the relationship between entertainment executives and creatives, highlighting their collaborations of more than 20 years. And the part that I honestly, why this has me so uneasy is the Legion TV series sounds awesome. The last title that they gave with I think it was X-Men Legacy during the Marvel Now launch, with the Legion character, I loved. It was really cool. I actually have a couple of the issues that I bought in paper, from a comic book store, and but the X-Men movies have been letting me down like year after year after year, so much so where it's like I didn't see this last one. I haven't even given it um the Batman versus Superman treatment, and find another way of watching it. It's just I haven't met. I'm like, yeah, it'll come out on FX later, next year or whatever, and I'll watch it then. As they play it 50 times over the course of 3 days, and I don't know if that necessarily gives me faith in this program, in the show. If it's tied to something lackluster, then doesn't that mean it's probably going to be lackluster itself?
Well, so here's I think we should take what he said into context. Singer discussed Legion, well, that he's executive producing for FX, saying it is designed to be a series that is part of the X-Men universe, but when you watch it, you wouldn't have to label it. It could exist completely on its own. This is someone hedging their bets. And this is someone saying, oh, it's related to X-Men if you're into the X-Men films. But if you're not into the X-Men films, don't worry about it. And it's the same kind of bullshit that corporate people speak when they say, oh, well, it's okay that we have a Barry Allen on TV and a different Barry Allen in the movies. Just think of them as in their different respective universes, and they could always conceivably cross over someday, only they never fucking will. And it's about the same as what Marvel's now stepping back from when they introduced Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spun out of the Marvel movies, and there's crossovers and everything. The universes coexist, and now it's like, maybe they coexist, maybe they don't coexist. Certainly, the show never affects the movies. The movies only affect the show. And now they're walking back a little bit on the Netflix stuff, too, saying, well, yeah, I mean, they're all part of the same universe, and there's some references that have happened in the show, but you might not expect to ever see those characters up on the screen because it's harder to film and everything. It's like, no, we were kind of led to believe that all the shit was interconnected, and that's kind of what made it fucking cool. They're all great shows in their own respects, but don't fucking dance around it and don't cut my balls and tell me that you're blowing me when it's like a half and half. That's fucking bullshit. My point is that Legion looks amazing. And Legion looks
Yeah.
amazing to me because it's not of the same mindset as the X-Men movies. I think I might have reviewed the last one on here at one point, and I can't say I was hugely disappointed by it just because my expectations have been so low after the last 4 X-Men films. And I don't include Deadpool in that because Deadpool is its own fucking thing. Yes, it's part of the X-Men universe in the same sense. It's like, oh, well, here's Colossus, and Colossus was at the mansion, and so obviously part of the X-Men because Colossus has been in the other movies, except he was completely fucking different in the other movies, and
He actually
nothing
talked in
like this character.
Deadpool.
Yeah, he actually got to speak, other than saying, "I can help you." No, go help them, dude. I'm fucking Wolverine. I got
Yeah.
this. I took my shirt off, so the next 80 minutes of the movie is going to be about me. Thanks. I'm not a fan of where the X-Men movies have gone, and I don't need this to be a part of it. I've also never been a big fan of the Legion character, but I didn't
Mhm.
read the X-Men Legacy book, and I did hear great things about it after the fact. This
Yeah.
just looks so good, but it looks good to me because it's by the people who did the Fargo series. And those people know how to make a compelling story and a great show. So I see this trailer and I'm like, this is fucking amazing. And I was just at the comic store and they were saying, well, what do you think about Legion? And it's like, I don't know what it has to do with anything. You're right. It doesn't have to do with anything. And thank God.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it should get to be its own thing. It's cool that they get to announce that there are mutants and mutants are a part of it and everything, but I don't expect to see a bunch of people running around in blue and yellow spandex.
The one that I actually am more curious about, like in for series, are excuse me, are the, like Evan mentioned before the show, Well, are we going to talk about the New Mutants, or not New Mutants, New Warriors TV show?
Yeah, the
And
New
or
Warriors Squirrel Girl TV series,
yeah,
which
and
I think is being looked at as a half-hour comedy,
yeah,
which is closer to Powerless.
yeah. Powerless is the NBC airing DC Comics show. But with that, and then the Runaways show on Hulu, those I'm more intrigued about because it's one of those things where I'm like, well, you have like especially like you have the Runaways, where you have Molly Hayes, who's a mutant, and you have all these other characters that their backstories heavily involve other like alien races and stuff like that that are currently under license to Fox. So how do they make that work more than this?
Well,
This like, oh,
the Fox TV stuff isn't in lined up the same way as the movie stuff, but they still they can make deals on those easier than they can have crossovers in the films. But it certainly seems to make sense that if Marvel's making constellations and saying, okay, sure, go ahead and do a TV series with X-Men characters in it, but then let us to use this mutant character over here in this other thing. You know, that's the backdoor deals that can work out because there's not a lot riding on these things. We know the genre TV is already so touch and go. Like most of these shows don't, especially on Fox or FX, don't
mhm.
last more than a season. The Hulu stuff is still kind of a crapshoot as to what kind of success it's going to see. Marvel's doing fine with everything that they've put onto Netflix, and they're hitting their fourth season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You can
Mhm.
argue that it might not make it much past the point of where it gets to be serialized and gets its reruns, its syndication, but it's there. It's had success. It's moving around, and they've also had Agent Carter. I don't think Marvel's hurting, and there's certainly things they can do to talk away the mutant aspect, just like they did for Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in the
Mhm.
movies. Mutant's just a word. You can call them something else. You can call them fucking Inhumans as far as Marvel is concerned because they keep trying. Fucking ain't working, but you keep trying, people.
Yeah.
Um, I just think with this, like the X-Men movies don't have a continuity. It's already totally fucked. You know, if you look at Wolverine Origins, if you look at the differences of how characters act between movies 2 and 3, and then when they go into Days of Future Past, and suddenly older brothers are younger brothers, and older sisters didn't exist, and fuck you for even trying to make sense of this shit, but we're just gonna keep doing it anyway. Uh, it doesn't fucking matter. It just
Yeah,
really doesn't matter.
there's like this the one guy who's trying to keep track of all of it, and his room just looks like he's trying to solve a murder.
I mean,
Like
I
there's
would
just
love it if Legion made a joke like that. If
yeah.
Legion just like the reason why he's so fucked up in the head is because reality keeps changing around him, and it's just Bryan Singer standing in front of a notebook, going like, "Well, fuck it. Now in this reality, Nightcrawler is green, and he doesn't teleport anymore. He can just bend and suck his own dick. I think that that's great. It sounds like a pool party." Sorry, bad joke. Bad joke, Bryan Singer. I don't hurt you that way, but you know what I'm talking about. So I don't fucking care. Let the
Yeah.
fucking show be the show. The show looks great. Hopefully it succeeds. I loved Scream Queens last season, and that thing's dumb as shit. So and that's coming back. It's just
Yeah.
give it a shot.
Um. Yeah. Other. I realize I sort of want to save this one, but I'm not because this is the news, and I don't think anything else has come out about it. But this is that Image Comics is their headquarters is relocating to Portland. Um, and according to the article, which we got 5 days ago now, and while there is no official confirmation or comment yet, um, that is the rumor that it's going to be moving. They're going to be moving their physical operations from Berkeley, California, to Portland, Oregon, in the near future. And this, I believe, would be the third move for them, headquarters wise, slowly moving up the Pacific Coast Highway, going from they were in the Los Angeles area, then going up to Berkeley, and then Berkeley to Portland. Um, and it does make sense because the article points out that a lot of Portland is currently home to a thriving comics community, and like almost certainly the nation's largest, including uh, Bitch Planet creator Kelly Sue DeConnick and Casanova as Matt Fraction as two of the key names in Image's current publication lineup. But you can also include in there Greg Rucka, who works for Image with Lazarus and with what's the other book? Black Magic. And then there's like quite a bit of those, and then also Portland is also the headquarters of Dark Horse Comics, Oni Press, and the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, and you're talking about a lot of the big names, but Portland's also got a thriving, independent press comic scene, and so does Seattle, which is like right there. The other thing
yeah,
is the whole point of being in California, starting out in the LA area or Orange County area because it's close to Hollywood, and then moving up to the Bay Area, Berkeley, where there was a lot of independent scenes and stuff like that, and it was less expensive than living in Hollywood, but it's gotten just as expensive in the Bay
yeah,
Area now. I mean, I live in the Bay Area, and we're dying, so it makes sense. Not that Portland's cheap, but you factor in that this is where they're mining more and more of their talent, and a one-shot plane ride from there to LA doesn't cost much, and it takes about an hour or so. When I flew up to Seattle a few years ago, it was an hour flight direct. It was super easy, and I'm betting. I think I kind of remember the airports there are a lot easier to deal with than the ones in San Francisco and even Oakland.
yeah,
Uh, I think that it makes sense. Obviously, it's disappointing because we had the Image Expo in the Bay Area the last few years. It was nice. I got to go to it a couple years ago. It was a good time. But I don't blame them. The only thing I worry about is some of the mainstays who've been there for so long, like Eric Larson, who I know lives locally, might have to uproot if he chooses to. It depends
yeah,
on how much of the day to day he has to be involved in. And with telecommuting and everything else, I more think that it's about the people who work behind the scenes because I saw a lot of them. They're young. God, there was this one guy who was just so smart. When he got up on the stage, he was talking. I don't know that he had anything to do as a creator. He was there as someone who just worked for Image and helped organize things, like help do the show. Ron from All About Android was working for Image at the
Ramazo.
time. You know, no longer works for Image now and just moved back to New York. Jerk. But like all these people that worked for them, obviously it would be easier on them to live in a place where it's not $2,500 a month for a one-bedroom rental,
Yeah, yeah.
and everything else that's associated with the cost of living in that area. So yeah, it's smart. It's a smart move. I wish them the best. It would be nice if when I was unemployed, there was a job for an intern that did not pay nearly enough for the drive that it would have taken me, but I'm pretty sure it was for Image Comics, and I wanted that job so bad. And if my car had been a little bit more reliable at the time, I might have taken it just even if just for a couple of months to just say that I did it and to make the
Yeah.
contacts and stuff. But yeah, if it's actually official, if it's happening, I just question how much needs to happen for a company like this to move at this point. It I don't think it has anything to do with the printing or distribution. I think it's more of just the basic, day-to-day office stuff, and
Mhm.
I don't know how much of an impact it would really make for what they do.
Well, so see, here's the thing. First off, they're going to have to prepare for this journey by doing a big, like, publisher-wide event series that's
Oh
going to
God.
change everything up.
Uh, how about they just fucking finish Image United? Yeah, I'm calling you out, dicks.
Shots fired. But yeah, and finally, the last bit of news is news that I love. I love to hear. I heard this all today. Um, and I was actually playing Civilization 5 earlier, and Beat threw up the link, and I'm like, add it to the show. Like, I will find a spot to talk about this. And this is that Bill Nye the Science Guy is landing his own Netflix talk show. And right off the bat, I'm saying, hell's yeah. If this is a weekly thing, great. Because I love this. And the show will be called Bill Nye Saves the World, and it will explore science and its impact on politics, society, and pop culture. Each episode of the series will tackle a topic from a specific point of view, dispelling myths and refuting anti-scientific claims that may be espoused by politicians, religious leaders, or titans of industry. And it also mentions that this is his long return since his from his 1990s Bill Nye the Science Guy TV show that aired through I think I can't remember who it was that did it, but
It
it
was
was
on
later but
Fox.
yeah, it was on, well, it was on Fox. It was on, for me, it was on PBS, and then went to to Disney, because Disney, I think Disney acquired the rights towards the end. Um,
I'm just going to admit, and I feel no shame in this, I was a Beekman's World watcher.
I watched, see, Beekman's World for me was on the Detroit Fox station. It wasn't on the Lansing one because, being where I live, I get both Fox and Detroit. Now, if I'm cord cutting, I only get Lansing, but with cable, I get the ABC, NBC, and Fox, but not CBS for some weird reason. Detroit's.
I'm just saying, Beekman had a guy in a rat suit. I liked it.
Yeah, no, Beekman was cool. I enjoyed both of them. Um, I enjoyed Bill Nye more. But
Yeah, I
I like this. I like
I
the
like Paul
attitude.
Zaloom. I think he's excellent. I actually saw him show up on somebody's science show on YouTube recently, and it was so cool. The guy's
Yeah.
just he's great.
No, yeah. And so this is actually one that I've got in an argument with, because, as I mentioned here, I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I'm a Christian, and a lot of my friends are like, "Oh, Bill Nye," like, so super Bill Nye haters, and I'm like, now, where I might not agree with everything he says, politics wise, religion wise, all that sort of deal, he still knows what he's talking about. And they're like, he's not a real scientist. I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. Guess what? That's why he's called himself the science guy.
Yeah.
Not he's a scientist. Because guess what? I'm a science guy as well.
Yeah.
No, I
Go
don't have a
to
degree.
almost any school, and your science teacher is probably not a full-on scientist.
Yeah.
That's like going to any restaurant and assuming that the person cooking your food is an actual chef.
Yeah. Yeah. And he might have a degree in engineering or whatever. I don't know. Beats asking this. I don't know. But I enjoy him for the fact that he made science to me cool.
Yeah.
Like, growing up, he made it to where I understood that stuff easier than just than it. Same thing with Beekman's World. Like, Beekman's World was the same way. It was just Beekman's World had that edge where Bill Nye the Science Guy was like a little bit more absurd, almost like very similar to like Animaniacs in that way, where it had its absurdist moments, where it had the I remember the talking about the states of matter, so solid, liquid, and gas, and you had the student, um he had the student, the like co-hosts with him, and they'd be like, solid and like liquid and it's a gas, like, like a Cheech and Chong sort of deal. I
Yep.
like that. That was
Yeah,
cool.
I mean,
That helped me.
anything that quote unquote tricks you into learning by being so fucking entertaining is incredible. And someone we undervalue educators in this country way too much. And I just love and appreciate people who not only like he did a show, and yes, he got a paycheck for doing the show and everything, but he's continued on trying to bring science to kids and to necessarily adults in this day and age. It's ever since, like the show you
Yeah,
said ended in the 90s, but he's still
actually,
continuing to build on science.
it ended in like 2002, I believe.
Oh wow, that lasted
The
way
early
longer than I
2000s.
thought it.
Yeah. But no. So here's the cool thing. So first off, he actually is a scientist because as Beat pointed out by doing research, he graduated in or he studied mechanical engineering at Cornell University, where he took an astronomy class taught by Carl fucking Sagan, and graduated with a bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering in 1977. Um, but then to go on the production side of things here, Bill Nye Saves the World will be produced for Netflix by Boone and Murray Productions, who I think they were the later people that produced Bill Nye the Science Guy. Um, well, it says the executive producers, but the cool part is Michael Nadius, who did the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, will serve as showrunner and executive producer. Writer and stand-up comedian Mike Drucker will serve as head comedy writer, and astronomer, author, and award-winning science communicator Phil Plait will serve as the head science writer. Holy fuck! I want to see this show really, really soon.
Now, I also want to mention, just because it kind of cracks me up a little bit, the first thing that I ever saw Bill Nye on was a show in the early 80s, and it did last apparently through 99. I can't believe that. Called Almost Live. Bill Nye was part of it. It was a sketch comedy show. And
Is
another
this
person, go
Joel
ahead.
McHale?
Joel McHale was also on this show.
Yeah, this is the one that is. There was a few other people that I thought that came out of that too, but like they were two big, the two bigger ones out of
Yep.
it. Um, but yeah, this is a cool thing to see. I mean, I love. No, don't get me wrong. Netflix has some great stuff going on in their stuff in
Oh
their
yeah, if
catalog.
Bill Nye can explain to me what the fucking underneath is from Stranger Things,
The
fucking
upside
go for
downs.
it, Bill Nye.
Yeah, yeah. Because see, it's Bill Nye is in this class with me right now. Not with me, like we're in the same class, but where he explains things really well, which
Oh,
is
Bill
something
Nye's right here. Hey guys, let's go.
you. Yeah, but
Science,
it's like
motherfucker.
it's him. It's Michio Kaku. I always understood when he had that Discovery show about like what he's basically him being a futurist and seeing the future. Yeah, and see Beats pointing out all these things here, like Kyle Hill with Because Science on the Nerdist Network. But then Neil deGrasse Tyson, like all those guys, they made science super easy for me to understand and explain. So much so that I was doing this. I was doing this past week in church because our theme for the children's ministry, the virtue was obedience, but we were using the theme of science. So we got to use oh shit, what was it? Well, one week we had dry ice, and I was like, now be careful, people. But what was the last one? I had it, and I just said it right away. Oh, it was non-Newtonian fluids. It was cornstarch and water, and then you give it a force, and it's solid, but then you like let it go, and oh, it just all of a sudden becomes a liquid. Sort of deal. I was explaining that, which I'm like, I feel like such a fucking nerd up here on stage right now with these kids. Oh, and also I should welcome Dave Nelson, tasteful Dave Nelson, to who is watching live, saying this is my favorite Galactic Network podcast. I know he is lying because he
Well,
hosts like three other ones, and that means he does not like his stuff that he does.
I was just gonna say, Matt and I, Kara of the Podcast of Terror, say fuck you, Dave.
And myself as a hosting the comic book segment on your weekly Galactic radio segment also say the same thing.
Well, he said current, probably.
Hey, it's future. It's like next week. But yeah, so that is it for the news, and I'm actually going to do a smart thing right now. I'm going to give myself a pause for the audio plug that I wanted to put in last week, but forgot, and I'm like, oh shoot, I need a spot to put it. So here's a pause. All right, now it's on to nerding out. And I have a nerding out for this. Corey, if you have one you want to do, by all means. But this one, it's actually a plug because we're recording this on August 31st, and the other parts of the season come up tomorrow on September 1st, and this is Shameless seasons 1 through 4. Now they'll be airing season 7 here in like a month or two, I believe, on Showtime, and this is the American version, not the British version, as Evan asked, and is rightfully so, as a dude who used to host a show called Pod Save the Queen. Um, but that is 11 seasons, and that's a lot to get through in 2 weeks. Like I got through 4 1-hour seasons of 12 episodes each on Netflix, and but no, so Shameless, it follows the Gallaghers as they live in the South Side of Chicago, and gosh, this show, it's one of these shows that makes me regret not watching it live in when it was going. Like where's this been all my life, sort of deal. And yeah, there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of
Woohoo!
yeah, there's a lot of violence and stuff like that, but
Woo.
really the heart of it is the fact that the Gallaghers actually care for each other, where it comes across that they don't, and you have the main the main character of or the father, played by William H. Macy, who is a drugged out, despicable alcoholic. You're pretty sure he would almost sell one of his kids for a beer, sort of deal. Actually, I take that back, because in the first season he did do that. He was going to sell his parental rights to his youngest, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. Um, and also, I will point out in our chat right now on YouTube, they're saying how they can't have uh they can't play favorites with Galactic Netcasts, which I appreciate that. um, but with Shameless, it's interesting to see that you have such a despicable character, actually characters even, where like I think person, the only character you can say that's not despicable is Liam, who's like a baby when the show starts, and but you slowly realize afterwards that they are despicable for a reason. They are despicable for their family, for the most part, or in um in uh William H Macy's character, for himself, but then also for his family, when he realizes, oh, they're going to do something, they're going to get in trouble really bad, and it's my fault, or something along those lines. um this show, it's so catchy. The music that they got throughout here the whole time, it's so catchy, so fun even. um the theme song I had stuck in my head all these, like, while binge watching. I had that theme song, think of all the luck you got. I cannot think by the band, but that's the name of the song, stuck throughout my head the whole time. Like last weekend, I was house sitting for my grandma, and I'm just in my head playing it over and over and over again. and and it was tough. I cannot wait for tomorrow with the season 5 and 6 coming out, just so I can get caught up to with what they have out now, or coming soon with season 7, but also to see where that goes, because you sort of see, well, first off, you see the characters grow, and also for Dave Nelson, who is a big Gotham fan, it features a young, I'm blanking on the actor who plays Jerome is in here, and he is great in there. Cameron Monaghan, I believe, is his name. and it it almost makes me want to go check out Gotham because at first I'm like, my first impression of him was, oh, I don't like him. He's doing this weird Joker impersonation. But then it's like watching him on Shameless. I'm like, actually, he's really good. He is really good. There's some parts in here because we're getting to the point. I'm getting at the point right now where he was filming this while filming Gotham as well. So I'm starting to realize, like, because like he came back from his character came back from boot camp, and he's got the longer hair, and I'm like, oh wait, he was getting he was filming for Gotham right about this time, I believe, and and just I don't know. I enjoy the show. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. It's not like it's a sleeper hit or anything like that. It's just there's a new outlet now, and I didn't expect it to be out on Netflix. A lot of the shows that are Showtime originals are on Netflix, with the exception of House of Cards, which I sort of want to say, what the fuck?
You mean House of
Why?
Lies?
Or yeah, House of Lies. Yeah, why is House of Lies not out there? Especially when they completed their series, they had their full series wrap up this past season and all that. But yeah,
It may
so
have been
check.
something that had a deal that was made prior to all the other things that were happening. So
But no, because it's weird because you have just about every other show. You got Dexter, Nurse Jackie, United States of Tara, um, Happy-ish, which not enough people watched. It needed a second season. I actually started. I rewatched the pilot for it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is good. I remember loving this show when it came out. Um, it doesn't have roadies. It doesn't have anything current, but that makes me wonder why House of Lies isn't on there, but yet it's on Hulu. And I think if you get the Showtime subscription, and I think it might be on Amazon Prime if you do the Showtime package with it. But I don't know. It's just something that I was wondering as I was talking, as my mind does. So Corey, do you got a nerdy out, or should we go to our discussion topic?
let's go to the discussion topic.
All right. So I got a burp right there. So you had some news happen recently that almost happened to me a few years ago, and it's one of those things that I think we should talk about, and it's that your comic book store that you worked at for a little bit when you were unemployed, and and that you went to when you were buying comics recently closed
Today.
today.
Today is the official last day of the comic book box. Now, for a little history, before I moved to California, I've collected comics my entire life, so 40-something years. But I worked and managed a comic store in Michigan called Comic City for Bob and Jill, who were basically two of the best bosses you could ever ask for. And when I moved to California, I wound up working at Fantasy Books and Games and assistant managing that when Chris Nelson, who was the manager at the time who hired me, left. Me and Matt and Mike all kind of took over the store together. And then recently I got to help out at Kathy's at the comic book box while I was unemployed, and just in general, it was extremely nice of her to let me help out, and it was kind of like two friends doing each other a favor, but it
Yeah.
was a big favor that she was doing me, whereas I always felt like what I was doing for her was very minor. Although there were days that she was definitely glad not to have to come in. But Kathy has worked for the store for 30 years and owned it for 26 years. I think she had her 25th anniversary of owning it 2 years ago, so maybe 27 years now, where she bought it out from the original owner. Started out in a basement in Petaluma, and she moved it upstairs so it got more visibility, and then moved it to Roner Park / Gitati over the last several years, a couple of different locations. So it's shifted around a little bit, but there are people that have shopped at the store, essentially the entire time that she's been a part of it. There are people that have grown up knowing Kathy and only know comics in association with Kathy giving them to him or selling them to him. she is a fixture. She's been in the newspaper. She was a judge for the EisNers a couple years ago. She is well known in the industry. She is well beloved by many people. People like Terry Moore and his wife Robin consider her a very dear friend. Terry sent her flowers when she opened her new shop. Um, Brent, uh, who does the artwork for Astro City and did God Loves Man Kills for Marvel for the X-Men and everything. He's a friend of hers. Like a lot of people, I've met a lot of famous people from knowing Kathy, and just a lot of great people, a lot of customers that I had at Fantasy. Wound up going to Kathy's, and so when I was working there, I would get to see people that I knew from that, but they already knew her. They always talked about her. It'd be like there was the fantasy shopping, and then there was the comic book box shopping, and that was the nice thing, is that there was always a good relationship between the two stores. But there's something particularly important about having a local comic store. Now, I know a lot of people don't have local comic shops, or they don't have a local comic shop that they feel comfortable shopping at, or maybe doesn't have the best selection, or maybe doesn't sell comics primarily and only thinks about it as a, like, oh yeah, we got some back issues over there, but we sell gaming stuff more, or we sell this other stuff more. I've seen comic stores that are also pet stores, because you go with what your business is. So I think it's important to talk about, having someone who is a part of the community, like she is. She always winds up donating comics to the local library, or selling them to the local library, depending on how the things are. She has been involved with other shops and other things. One of our friends came in today, and he said when he started his job, when he opened up what was Electronics Boutique in Petaluma, which I think eventually became GameStop. She was the person he went to, the first person who said, okay, we'll do cross promotion with you, when the store was getting kind of a lot of flack from Petaluma because it was a big business chain coming into a small business town. And so that helped him out a lot at a point in time where, that kind of stuff mattered, and not a lot of people were willing to take that kind of risk on this company coming in. Uh, Everybody has great stories to tell about her, and just in general, the great stories that you get from going to your local comic store, going in and talking to the other fans every week, kind of like what we do here. Only it's just these are random people that sometimes they're people that you know because you see them come in every Wednesday or Thursday to pick up their books, and sometimes they're people who just never come in your shop before, and they're just excited because it's like, oh man, I didn't know that this place existed, and I didn't know these comics existed, or I've been looking for a local comic shop for a while, and the kind of conversations you have of like, oh, did you know about this new show coming out, or have you seen the new X-Men or Marvel Comics movie, or man, I remember when Watchmen came out and it took forever for issue 12 to finally hit. Those kinds of things. That's the reason why I can talk with the kind of confidence and stuff that I do when we talk about comics. I'm not nearly the collector that I was before now. Part of it's financial, part of it's just, other things take up my time. But I've spent so many years either working at comic stores or just being a regular at a comic store that it's this kind of conversation that I hunger for. It's kind of thing because it's where I've met some of my favorite people, and certainly Kathy is one of my favorite people. The other thing is the things that she's done for us that weren't even comics related. Like, my wife's an artist. For those who don't know, the giant zombie head behind me is one of her paintings. I just like it in here because I do a podcast about terror. But a lot of her artwork has been on display at Kathy's shop, and Kathy sold Aaron's paintings just a couple weeks ago. She sold another. She sold two of them in the last couple of weeks. While she was doing everything else, while showing up every day, working 7 days a week for 6 weeks straight, to close up her store, she's selling my wife's artwork And that's the kind of stuff that gave my wife confidence to do more artwork and try different things and stretch outside of her normal realm. And gives her money to be able to pay for new supplies and stuff at the same time. That's a huge thing to do. That's an amazing thing to just allow someone to do. And she's done local signings for different artists, and non-local artists. She's had people flown in. It's just, there's so much amazing stuff that can exist in this spot that a lot of people don't even know is there, or even know to go show up. Not to mention the things like doing free comic book day every year, and the people who sometimes only come in for a free comic book day, but her treating them just as she would any other customers who come in regularly, giving them comics, letting them be excited and be a part of this thing, and instilling that excitement in children
Mm-hmm.
who this could be their very first comic book. She does the same thing Halloween. She passes out comics and stuff. She's just always been that great person. Plus, she's like everybody's mom or sister or aunt. She's the one who will make me take care of myself when I won't think to do it on my own. She is retiring, not because business is bad, because it's not, and people were like, just please stay, just keep doing what you're doing. We can't make it without you. It's because she's taking care of her family, and she spent the last several years taking care of family, taking care of elderly members of her family who passed away, taking care of the family that's still around, and it's just so much. And in that time, she's done very little taking care of herself. And that's why when I was helping out there, when RJ or any of the other people that have worked for, we try to look out for her in the way that she looks out for us.
Yeah.
But she's just this amazing person who puts so much else in front of her own well-being that it's nice to think that, like, not tomorrow. Tomorrow, even though the store is not going to be open, she's going to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning because someone's coming to pick up some of the fixtures. During the weekend, they're going to be still dealing with closing everything out and passing out a lot of the stuff to another store that's going to take over a lot of the merchandise. So it's not going to be right away, but eventually she's going to be able to get up and she's going to be able to look at her day and just have that ahead of her for herself. And that's
Yeah.
kind of an important thing. But yeah, it's really hard to lose what is a staple of your life, and to lose the ability to just kind of pop in and grab your comics and see one of your favorite people, or many of your favorite people all at once. It's like closing down a watering hole. It's like the end of Cheers,
Yeah.
the place where everybody knows your name. But it's kind of incredible too, because this is something that we want for her. We want her to be able to just go out on top.
No, yeah, exactly. That sounds almost exactly like what the when and I've got two flyers here. I got this little card right here for MegaCon, which is coming up, couple weeks. And then this one, which I cannot pronounce the name of the con. Uh, yeah, concatenation con. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's more of a science. It's a science fiction and fact convention, and the comic book store that I prefer, because we have two here in Jackson, where I live, they are behind both of them. They're a big supporter for MegaCon. This is the second one, and this one's going to feature Efren Ramirez from Napoleon Dynamite, Larry Thomas from Seinfeld. You might know him as the Soup Nazi. Um, RWBY and Red vs. Blues, Aaron Zetch, and then Namu, Nabanangas the Fool, Crystal Laporte. The Fool is Crystal Laporte, and then also Mark Bagley, Evan Shaner, and then cosplayers Diamond Dog, Sweets for a Sweet, and Victory are all going to be there. The cosplayers are going to be the judges for a cosplay contest. And this is a similar thing. Like, the guy who used to own, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, I think back when we were on Spreecast was when the switch happened. but he retired from after I want to say about 20, 25, 30 years of owning and running Nostalgia Inc. He was like, I'm done. I'm old. Actually, no, I think it was longer than that. He had been doing it for a really long time, and he had owned Nostalgia Inc. for I think for 30 years. I think he'd been working in comic book stores for a lot longer, and he was just like, it's I'm done. And instead of the situation that you had where you have where people are buying her merchandise, um the new owner, he bought everything outright, and he's running the show. They're doing it seems like they're doing a lot more than what I think his name was Leon was able to do. Um and that's the cool thing about this. And and you mentioned the people who only come in during free comic book day. That's me. And it was more just because of how things went about with you know being um with things going there and all that stuff, that like I couldn't always get to the comic book store to buy comic books. But free comic book day, I'm like, all right, requested time off when I was working at Dollar General, and like, all right, I'm going to free comic book day. This is planned out, and I got other things going on, so I'm not coming in. And they respected that, and it was coming in her, and he knew my name. He knows. I feel like he still knows my name. Um, and it's a cool thing to see that, even someone like me who comes in, or he would come into my work, and we would just talk comic books, talk all this nerdy shit about all the different things I'm reading, and and all that, and being interested. That's so cool, and it seems like something that the other comic book store, if it was like, oh, well, they bought all this stuff, I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Ann Arbor to get my comic books, or I'm gonna go to Lansing to get my comic books, sort of deal. Not over there, because I went in there I think 2 3 times, and when one of them was for free comic book day. They didn't have it labeled, didn't have it like showing. It was just the comics were sprawled out on top of long boxes, and it was pick what you want. But you didn't. I didn't see that until after I left, and I'm like, well, thanks for the fucking sign, you assholes, saying I could have taken one of each. And no one at this other store, and that's why I'm not dropping the name, because they don't get a free plug on our show. But they were all chit chatting like they were friends, and like not like they were nerds growing up in high school and know what it's like, and so they're just not going to be inclusionary. They're going to be like, nah, you're a newbie. We don't know who you are. We're not going to talk to you, sort of deal. At least
Yeah,
that was the impression I had.
it's always tough because you want to. I mean, like I said, it's a family kind of feel if you're there every week or you're there all the time. That you like you want to chat with people and everything, but you also have to be aware of the other people who come in. You have to be inviting, and that's a retail thing in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is that. Well, we're having our conversation. You can drop into the conversation, and that's part of the thing of what Kathy was great at is that she was inclusive. But I know it's tough, and some people just don't care. I've been in. I mean, when I worked at Comic City, me and Bob and Jill went and toured a bunch of the other comic stores that were in the area. Some of them long-standing. I've seen the comic shop with the guy with the giant beard eating a cheeseburger with half of the cheeseburger stuck in his beard, doing transactions out of a cigar box, even though there's a register right there, just so he doesn't have to do anything on his taxes, and the smell wafting at you that is just like a punch in the face. I know those shops. It is terrifying, but that's
Yeah.
how comic stores were for a long time, and there's a huge difference between that and a shop that is brightly lit, that is
Mhm.
inviting to not just men but women and children, that doesn't have scantily clad drawings of women up on the walls everywhere, that doesn't have adult books just sitting out on the shelf next to the X-Men comics, or the Archie comics, shops that have
Okay.
an actual kids section that try to make things available, try to keep things professional and organized. Uh, a section with graphic novels, or
Yeah.
preferably tons of sections with graphic novels. That's that's kind of the thing. Like, I've gone through in my mind since first working in a comic store what my dream store would be. And the thing is that while there are some differences for, like, maybe emphasis on certain kinds of product, or putting things out in a certain display, like, otherwise, I've worked for what are my dream comic stores.
Hmm.
Comic City was a huge thing to me. It felt much more like what you would walk into if you went into, like, if Target or Best Buy made a comic store. But that's because Bob worked for Best Buy and places like that before he opened his comic shop. And he got fixtures and stuff that came out that were, like, they were all unifying fixtures. And then I've
Yeah.
worked at Kathy's shop, which is more of a laid back kind of feel, but again, very professional, very open and inviting to any casual person to walk in and feel like, oh wow, this is a comic store. I always heard horror stories about these places.
Yeah.
Um, and when it comes to that, when it comes to, like, appreciating and loving your clientele, and knowing everybody's names, and having the expectation that you're going to see these people every week, and feeling really bummed when you don't get to see them for a week, or she's had people that have passed away,
Yeah.
that have been really close to her. There was a customer that we knew, he was dealing with cancer for a long time, and then just suddenly one day it was like that was the moment that we weren't going to ever get to see him again. But he came in with his son all the time, and his son, came in and let us know. It was just the things that she would. It's not like she ever thought like she was going out of her way, but there was certainly an amount of care that she put forward that not every place would, and
Yeah.
that's what's important to me. And that it these are the things that have taught me to be who I am, that are the skills that got me into working as I did through Best Buy and Geek Squad. And now I'm not even in retail anymore, but those same things are why I've gotten into the job that I have in IT now, is because the interpersonal relationship stuff, and the wanting to help people, the actively looking to be there, and to like, your problem is my problem, let's work this out together, kind of thing. That's what you want out of the stores like that. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that Kathy uh, taught me.
Yeah. And I mean, that's those are the stores that I love. Those are the stores that I really really enjoy going to. Like a couple weeks ago, I went to over to Ann Arbor with my friends for my church, and my one friend, he told me about the comic book store that's right there downtown, Ann Arbor, and I go in there and I'm like, I love this store, and I was wearing I should say our different types of Captain T-shirt since you own it as
Mhm.
well, and this R2D2 hat, and I got a compliment on it by the same girl twice. In two separate instances, like she walked, she's like, "Oh, nice shirt," and she came back, she's like, "Oh, nice hat as well." And I'm like, "Thank you. This is I feel weird. How do I accept compliments?" Sort of deal. And it was cool to see, because it was a bigger store than Nostalgia is, and I would give a name drop, but I don't. It's like the Vault. I think it's the Vault at Midnight or something like that. Um, it was just a cool store. Had a downstairs solely for board games, or for like board and card games. Like you had your One Night Ultimate Werewolf down there,
Awesome.
on the shelves. Yeah, it's weird. I ordered it on Amazon after you mentioned it, and now I'm seeing it everywhere. It's like I just bought a new car, and now all I'm seeing are that car,
Yep.
sort of deal. And like, what they had, I think the Marvel dice game that's out there, um, all downstairs, and it was really cool. And but so B asks a question. I think this might be where we'll end. Um, and this is, do you think that or printed comic books will be the new vinyl in the future?
Um, I mean, so here's the thing with comics and the collectability thing. That's always kind of the high point and the low point of comics is our comics collectible
Yeah,
and our comics about value, the perceived value of is this going to go up in price, is this going to go down in price, what's Spawn #1 worth now? Pretty much dick. But when it came out, everybody was sure that it was going to be worth a fortune, and for a while it was worth a lot if you go off of price guides. But what price guides at that point in time were taking into account was that everybody had it, everybody could get it, and once the collectability wore off because everybody could get the stories and graphic novels, it didn't matter much anymore. So it's only the rare comics that will be valued. So in that regard, print comics kind of are like vinyl anyways. You can go out and get your Kajagoogoo album like used from a either old record store if you can find a record store or from a thrift shop or something, but that's not the album that is going to be valuable, and
yeah,
certainly not necessarily the album that's going to be valuable to you. Like I've got a Olivia Newton-John album sitting behind me because they're fucking Olivia Newton-John. They're prizes to me, and somebody mistakenly sold them for a pittance. But that's what I'm saying is like printed comics. I think will continue to exist as long as print continues to exist, and as much as they like to bemoan, well, will they be around forever and stuff? I don't see it going away yet. The
yeah,
thing that we've discovered over the last few years is that digital sales, which are doing pretty well, and the discoverability of digital and availability of digital, all that stuff seems like it would be a game changer for when it comes to print. But as digital sales are happening and exploding, print comics are doing better as well. Now, there's an ebb and flow to comic sales in general, and Mark Miller and Grant Morrison in the 90s talked about this. Like there was a 10-year cycle of like where things would get really built up and then they would kind of explode and fall apart again, and that's when you see
yeah,
things like the death of Superman happen. It's building up, and then you see the 90s purge of like, oh well, everything's gone to shit. But print, I think, will exist because of the comic shops, and that's the only reason why they still exist. You'll
yeah,
see it. You'll see them pop up in Walmart. You'll see them pop up in Target. The collections. I don't think you'll see single issues like that anymore. It's unfortunate they went away from the newsstands because I started out collecting comics because there was comics in front of my apartment building or at my local grocery or the local dime store and everything sitting on
hmm,
racks, and it was always a crapshoot of what was going to be there and what kind of condition it was, but I didn't care. I was reading the stories. Um,
the
when comic,
only the
go ahead,
the only comic that I know of that still is in stores, or at least in Meyer, is Archie. The
Archie
new
comics.
the new Archies even.
Yep. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm like, what? This is weird. And it makes me wonder, like, is this through Diamond or how is this
No, it's
go?
it's still
Yeah,
through a newsstand distributor because Archie didn't do an exclusive through Diamond. They didn't have to,
yeah,
and that's why Archie is still as big as it is because it's available everywhere. People look at Archie and like, what? You sell 2 or 3 copies of Archie a month? Oh yeah, we do at this store. But when you add up where Archie is everywhere,
yeah.
I'm in Safeway in line, and my kid sees there's a comic book there for $1.20 or whatever, and it's a little cool digest comic that's got a lot of pages that doesn't cost a lot, and I know they're going to get a bunch of story out of it. Yeah, I'm going to get that kid that comic because it's cost effectively the same as a candy bar, but he's going to spend a lot more time on it, and he's not
Yeah.
going to be any more hyper, and he's going to be reading, and he's going to be learning storytelling, and he's going to be learning character interaction and relationship stuff. In Archie format, which is like you said, there's the new Archie comics, and then there's the old
Mhm.
Archie comics classics. I love them both, but they're very different from each other.
Yeah.
It's too bad that there's not more like that out there. But at the same time, there's this whole new renaissance of comics that are happening online, that are only online because getting into a store and getting through Diamond is cost prohibitive, and sometimes diamond prohibitive. For whatever reason, they just don't want to put out comics sometimes. Um, but like I said, I think that there are people that are always going to associate comics with a comic store.
Yeah.
They were either raised with it, or it's like I went to the local movie theater and I saw the new Doctor Strange movie, and a local comic shop put an ad in the slides before the movie started and said, "Hey, if you want to check out Doctor Strange comics and other Marvel comics, we got them here at this shop. Stop in sometime, check us out." And it's like, oh crap, I can go read comics about this character that just saw a movie about, and if Marvel markets well enough, then that can be helpful for you. But once they get in there and they see other stuff that they didn't know existed, and they see things that maybe is either stuff that they like Adventure Time. I saw a Clarence comic today
Yep.
on one of the kids' racks, or creators that are doing these other things that are also like doing other stuff. It's like, oh well, I read Doctor Strange and I think Doctor Strange is pretty cool, but do you have like that next step on it? Oh yeah, you should check out Books of Magic from Vertigo from the 90s, and then if you like that, maybe you could check out some of the other stuff that they've done. Fables, you can check out Sandman, you can follow the creators of these things, other stuff. That's, to me, like, it's like going through Amazon to order a book. If you
Mhm.
don't know the book that you're looking for, and Amazon hasn't quite figured out what you're into, they make assumptions, but they can't do what a person in a shop can do, what a really good shop owner or comic shop person would do, which is someone comes in and they're like, "Oh, I'm interested in comics, but I don't know what to read." My first question is, "What are you into? What do you like?"
Yeah.
So many comics. Yeah, there are certain comics I can put in somebody's hands, like Death: The High Cost of Living, or Strangers in Paradise, or Watchmen, or whatever, and I know that they're going to enjoy that. But I want to create an experience for them where it's like I find them that perfect book or that perfect
Yeah.
starting point. I talked to a kid, and not a kid, but like a teenager, and he's talking about the kinds of stuff he's into, and I'm like, God damn it, you need to read Preacher right now. He comes in and he's like, I bought that Preacher trade and I read it, and I'm back here this week to get the next one, and or I'm really into what you did here, and what else has this team done? It's like, okay, well, if you want more of a superhero thing, they did Punisher. But if you want to read some of Garth's other stuff, you can go over and read some of the Hellblazer things that he did. And it's great to see something grow organically based off of the individual, and that's why I've always felt that comics need to serve everybody. That's why it's
Yeah.
important to not just have superhero comics. It's why it's important to not just have comics that are based around white male uh, power types. That you want to have characters of different race, you want to have characters of different gender, or of varying genders. You want to have characters that you want to have kids comics, you want to have teen comics, you want to have adult comics. It's important to serve everyone, and that's why I get frustrated by things like fake geek rhetoric and shit, because I don't think there's a fake geek. I think everybody enjoys the things that they enjoy, and you just have to find something for that person to enjoy to invite them in. And it's
Yeah.
better for the inclusion than it is to close things up, because I don't want to read the same comic stories over and over again. And that's a frustration I have with Marvel and DC right now, is they keep telling me the same stories, and it's lost its luster. I want to read new stories, and I want to see new ideas, and I want to get new characters. And I'm not saying I want to give up the old characters that I love coming in, but I don't want to just keep seeing Batman fight the Joker over and over. That's boring. I
Yeah.
at least want to see a new take on it, or I want to see somebody else. I want to see something else happen. And it's okay to keep doing Batman stories and Batman and Joker stories, because there's the next audience coming in that is going to be excited because it's going to be their first time seeing that. But why couldn't we, and why shouldn't we have more? And that's like we were talking about earlier with Image. Image of 25 years ago is very different from the Image of today, because the audience grew and changed over time, which is not, again, to say that there's not a value to what Image had done then. There are people who still read Spawn. There are people like me who are excited about the Youngblood book coming out because it's a different take on Youngblood, but it's Youngblood, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, or people who've stuck it out with Savage Dragon, or people who are like, well, I liked what these creators are doing then. I'm interested in what these creators are doing now. That to me is so great. And again, I don't think that Amazon or even Comixology is very good at making that personalized one-on-one interaction with a person yet to say these are the comics that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah. Um, so I will answer this question and relating it back to my trip to Ann Arbor. One of the first places we went to was um was an Urban Outfitter, and I kid you not, with the half hour to 45 minutes we were in Urban Outfitter, I looked at all the vinyls, and I enjoy the looking at the vinyls because I found a Back to the Future vinyl that doesn't have the sleeve around it. You're just buying the disc, the vinyl. And so on the one side it's the poster with Marty going posing like that and all that stuff, and on the other side it's the dashboard for the DeLorean with the time and all that stuff and where they're going to be going. And
Nice.
all these other vinyls, these newer ones like the 21 Pilots latest album, or Kanye West, or whoever else they're listening to. But then, and this is what sort of disappointed me, and one of the ways I agree with Mark Maron when it comes to vinyl, and it's they also sell these shitty record players. Like the player might be fine, but the speakers suck like so hard. And I saw three people by the time I was in there buying those. And I'm like, no, okay, I get you're going to be Mr. or Miss Hipster and buy it on vinyl, but you want good speakers so your music sounds good, not, oh, this must be how it worked in the old timey days where before they invented stereo and whatnot. No, they still had good quality sounds. It's just sound has gotten better. So, and that sort of deal. So that's where I don't think that comics will become print comics will become the new vinyl in the future, because I don't see a world, at least a world that I want, where you can go into Urban Outfitters and you can pick up, X-Men 127, or Action Comics #1. Of course, they're all reprints. Um, but that's also something that sort of ticked me off in that thing, in that trip, was my friend. He asked me because I was in the comic book store, and then they went in after I left because I was like, okay, where'd they go? Because also, Ann Arbor, different town, drove there with a friend. Biggest fear comes in of, I'm left and now I have to walk home. Yay, sort of deal. And so I left, and I went walking down the road with one of my other friends, and he went in there and he's like, so give me the idea. And he already had ideas in his head but it was of the bigger ones that make the headlines. Like how they recently sold what was it, point grading of 5 on the comic books of Action Comics #1, and how it went for like all this big money. And he's like, show me the big money in comics. I'm like, that's not really what this store is about. You
Yeah,
know,
I've seen those people come in. They're
yeah,
like, what's the most expensive comic you have in here? I don't know. What's the
yeah,
most expensive amount of money you got in your wallet?
that's literally what he was like. He said, he's like, so I'm like, that's not really what this is about. That's not what I do when I read comic books. I'm not in there for the money. I'm in there for the story. What's going to be a good story? And that's where, because I read, 30 to 35 comics a week, sometimes longer when video games take up my time. Fucking civilization. Um, that I get, slacks to where I've gotten all the comics I want to read this week, but I still got a big selection from last week. So I got about 50 comics I need to get read and all that stuff. And it's like I read them for the stories. Like I love, like, to where I can be that walking Wikipedia that Beatmaster had mentioned, where it's like, and I did that at Dollar General. Like a lady came in who was a regular, and she's like, so my son, he's wanting to get into comic books. Can you help him out? Because she knew I was a nerd. And I'm like, yeah. So what does he like? Deadpool. Oh, well, there's the Deadpool comic book series. Or if you want to go, you can go to the Harley Quinn and just all these different books. Um, and so I think there will still be print, like you said, because of the comic book stores. As long as the comic book stores do well, there will still be that. Where the digital comes in are either for the lazy bastards or the towns, like the really rural areas where you have to drive an hour or two to get to a town that has a comic book store. That's where I think digital is will be king. Because I was surprised when I went up north with my grandma. We were in, I think, Alpena, and I'm not talking pirating comics. I'm talking like Comixology. But we were up in I think Alpena, Michigan, and we were driving, or no, it was Rogers City, and so smaller than Alpena, and we're driving through. I'm like, "There's a comic book store," and my gut reaction was like, "Grandma, stop!" After I looked, and I'm like, "Is it open? Is it open? Is it open?" And I'm like, "Grandma, stop! I want to go there. We're doing the lighthouses for you, but I want to go there." Sort of deal. And that's cool to see. Like we're going up north, and one of the things I want to be like, look is like, okay, are there comic book stores around here, just so I can go in and get a look at what they got, and how cool that would be, sort of deal. Just go in there and be like, because that's how I tie things together. Like I got you actually see it behind me, the Detroit Pistons hat that's hanging just by the Marvel poster. I call that my New York Pistons hat because I bought that hat in New York, sort of deal. Like everything is tied more to me because of like where I got it, or like my preacher book. I know I got that on Amazon, but I know that it also helped out the store, and it was because you recommended it to me. You know, the my Superwoman #1 or Superwoman's #1 I got in Ann Arbor. I know that it was from that event, that adventure, and it means more to me. I don't get into it for the money because chances are there's not really money. I've got a second or third printing of the Amazing Spider-Man with the Barack Obama variant, and that has no value except for to me, where I'm like, yeah, that was an interesting thing. I bought that at Kroger. It was in Kroger. I'm like, oh, mom, I want to get the comic. And she's probably like, you're 16 years old, or no, you're 20 years old. Buy it yourself. I don't have money. Fine, I'll get it. Sort of deal. And it was, it was what it was. Sort of deal. But
Yeah,
so
the
that's
amount of times of like kids coming in and like I want this, and the parents begrudgingly like, oh wait, I just took my kid into a store where they're going to want to buy everything. I am taken aback by the urge that they have for me to purchase these things for them. Um, it
as long
always
as as
cracks me
long
up.
as as long as the parent is saying that about Spider-Man, or something age appropriate, and they're not coming up with, mom, I want this, and it's Sex Criminals #1 or Saga number
There have
one.
definitely been things that we've had to lean parents away from, like Deadpool comics, because Deadpool comics, of course, every kid's gonna want to read a Deadpool comics. Uh, there's not Deadpool comics for little kids.
No,
That's a problem. We talked about that when the movie was coming out, and they were asking about a PG-13 version.
yeah, that doesn't really exist. Um, but no, and I don't know. That's sort of how I see the future. We did a really like all we missed is a trivia thing, and we would have ripped off Current Geek. Uh, but yeah, so that's gonna do it here for us. So, but before we go, want to let you guys know that just like you guys, Galactic Network has bills that has to get paid. Where you guys have rent every month, utility bills, car payments, all that stuff. We've got that stuff too. We got audio hosting, um, and we've got website hosting that we got to do. If you go to gncast.com, you'll see the website. That don't come cheap. So if you consider helping us out by going to the website at gncasts.com/support. Now, where you go, you'll get two things. You'll get a link to the Patreon page, which it's a 1 month set it forget it like Netflix thing. You can do as little as $1 a month. That's a quarter a week. That's a penny, but like what 3 cents a day or something like that. I don't know. I can't do math. Um, Sort of deal. A little, just a little bit. However, but with Patreon you can do however much you want. Or for you shoppers out there, you can do the our Amazon affiliate link. You go through there, I think it's 3 or 4% of your purchase. The price does not change, goes back to us. And again, we're not doing this to make money. We're doing this to so that we can show, or so that we can keep the ship afloat. So Dave's not pulling money out of pocket to do this, sort of to to keep the dream alive and all that. Um, and those are the best two ways that you could do this. And if you don't have the money to do either one, share them with your friends. Let them know on Facebook. Hey, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. Hey, this is something that I really enjoy. I think you guys might like it too. And if you have the money, go support them so they can keep doing this stuff.
And like we were talking about with the comic store and everything, we understand that maybe not every show is for you. Maybe you checked out ElseNerds this time because someone recommended it, and maybe this isn't your favorite podcast. We understand that, but that's the whole point of the Galactic Network is that just it's fine. I've taken rejection in my entire life, but maybe the Galactic Network has other shows that you might enjoy. If you listen to us, you might check out the new Galactic Radio show that we've got coming out very soon. Or you might enjoy
Christy Cates.
Yeah, if you enjoy role-playing games or gaming in general, you might want to check out Adventure Party. If you like getting cool story stuff about maybe how the world could end someday, you might want to check out some of Daryl's stuff over at... I just blanked.
Sci-Fi Survival Guide.
Sci-Fi Survival Guide. I kept wanting to say Who News and Reviews, and I'm like, that is not right.
No, see, here's the thing, because I think our minds are on the same wavelength here. Like, we've sort of, our menses have sunk or something like that. Because I was thinking that to do the next step of the, like, or if you're a Doctor Who fan, Daryl also does Who News and Reviews.
If you're a Doctor Who fan, you should definitely check out Podcast of Terror. Matt has nothing but nice things to say about it. So
that's a lie.
So that's the point, is that the Galactic Network has many shows, and we are always looking to add more shows to help us figure out, what your interests are. Give us a call. Call us at 805-328-3966 or email us, mail@elsenerds.com, and let us know what you're interested in, what we can do better, what the network can do better, or what the network maybe is underserving you on. Maybe you want a podcast about pie. I would like to hear about pie. I would like to see pictures of pie. I would like pie shoved in my face hole. That's what I need. But what are your needs?
I.e. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Also, I thought you were going to talk about the mathematical equation.
No, we're going to leave that for Bill Nye the Science Pie. So if any of that sounds interesting, and even if it doesn't, because we've kind of underserved it, you can go to gncast.com/subscribe and find subscription options for all of our shows. You can also go to our Facebook page under Galactic Netcasts, and you can follow the network on Twitter at Galactic Netcast, or you can follow our producers, Beatmaster80 or Mr_Fusion. That's Beatmaster and Evan. Gregor is at that Gregor on Twitter. I don't really Twitter as much, but you can go to don'taskcomics.com, find some of the comics that I've helped work on, and I help post every week and blog for the zany works of Levi Krauss, very good friend of mine, very, very great artist, and one of my favorite people in the world. I don't do too much of the Twitter as well, but what I have been getting more into is the Snapchat, where you can find me there on Gregor1942. That is my old username that I begrudgingly have to use, or just full-on create a new account, which I'm just lazy enough to where I don't want to do that. Especially with this weekend where I will be gone, I'll be like Snapchatting fun adventures as I travel up north. Or his now trips to the Tarka bathroom. So probably the best thing would be to follow at Galactic Netcasts on the Twitter. That's where you're going to see feeds from all of our various shows, and that would make the most sense. So,
Yes.
as far as this episode is concerned, this has been a Tell Glenn production. We will see you all next week.
Or else. And go in there and stop the recording. I sure